There's a third one. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Is this just recording or? Okay. So I'm reading in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita in Los Angeles at the end of 1968. Pick up where I left off yesterday. Let's see. And Prabhupada is just about to leave Los Angeles to go visit other temples that have sprung up in different places. During Prabhupada's 5 months in Los Angeles, many devotees had joined. All of them had learned firsthand how in Krishna consciousness everything centered around Krishna's pure devotee, the spiritual master. Having had their spiritual master with them for so long, the thought of his absence was painful. He had taught them everything except how to continue without him. But Prabhupada assured them that their service to him in separation was even higher service. Just as they wanted him to stay, so he also wanted to stay. But this traveling and preaching Krishna consciousness throughout the world was his duty to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Even at the risk of slackening his writing pace and leaving the ideal Krishna conscious setting, where his 108 rose bushes were just beginning to bloom. That's not just the rose bushes that he's referring to, but the young devotees in the situation in Los Angeles that was blooming, developing very quickly. Yeah. This is by Bhavananda Prabhu. We all went to the airport to see Prabhupada off. Prabhupada was waiting for the plane, and then it was time to leave. He was with his new servants, Purushottama and Kartikeya, and we were all chanting and crying. Prabhupada looked so bright as he walked down that little tunnel. He turned and waved, and then he just turned onto the plane. I was crying. I was thinking, I've been looking for my spiritual master for so long, and now that I've finally found him, he's leaving me. I will never see him again. Of course, he did see him again. Then the plane was taxiing down the runway. It took off, and we were all looking out the windows of the terminal building until the last speck. It's like the gopis when Krishna left Vrindavan. They kept looking after his cart till they couldn't see it anymore. Just like when Krishna left the gopis and went to Mathura, we kept looking until the last speck of the airplane was gone. This is chapter 7, Preaching in Germany, August 1969. Prabhupada wanted to go to England. His obligations on the West Coast fulfilled, he was eager to travel and preach on a new continent. But his disciples in England, although creating a significant impression on London, hadn't yet found a temple. The 3 couples were living in 3 different apartments around the city. Still, after a year, they had no center. But in Germany, young Shivananda had opened a little storefront temple within a few months of his arrival. Prabhupada decided to go as soon as possible to Shivananda in Germany, and from there go to England when they were ready for him. In July, he wrote Krishnadas, who had joined Shivananda, "You wanted to fix up a date, so I am telling you that I am prepared now on any date you call me." Only 4 disciples and a few friends were in Hamburg. At first, they became a little bewildered, although blissful to hear Prabhupada wanted to come. They weren't sure they had enough money. Would they have to pay his ticket all the way from California and his secretary's ticket? All they had was a tiny storefront. Where would Prabhupada stay? Not many people attended their temple programs, so what would Prabhupada do in Hamburg? Prabhupada sensed their confusion when they sent a discount Icelandic Airlines ticket to him at the wrong address in California. He wrote them on August 5th. From these letters, it appears that things are not yet settled up, and under the circumstances, there is no use rushing the matter. Settle things up nicely, and when you get the money from Mukunda and the apartment, then arrange for the tickets and we shall start. Do everything cool-headedly. There's that story of Prabhupada in a grocery store with one of his disciples, and they saw in the vegetable case, some of the vegetables had a label on them, keep in a cool place. And he said the brahmachari should keep that sticker on their forehead. And the grihastas too. All the devotees have to stay cool. In 1968 in Montreal, when he had heard Srila Prabhupada talk about bringing Krishna consciousness to London, Shivananda had asked to go. At first, however, Prabhupada had doubted whether such a young, inexperienced boy should go alone to a foreign country as Shivananda was proposing. But when Shivananda had persisted, Prabhupada had allowed him, although warning, be careful. I was an old Calcutta boy when I came to New York, and I never got cheated. Shivananda had had very little money, but in August 1968, his mother had paid for his trip to England. London immigration authorities had refused him entry, and he had gone to Amsterdam. There he had drawn public attention and press coverage by dressing in a dhoti and chanting in public by himself. He had sent Prabhupada the news clippings as well as a letter expressing enthusiasm and loneliness. Touched by Shivananda's bold, pioneering spirit, Prabhupada had written him as spiritual father to son. This is the letter. I have seen the description of your activities in Amsterdam, but I could not understand the language. But one thing I observed in that article was my name, Swami A.C. Bhaktivedanta. This indicates that your tour in Europe is going to be very successful. I hope you will receive this letter and be courageous and always chant Hare Krishna. You will be successful in the same way that I was. I came to New York in the same helpless way, and gradually many students like you have come to help me. So don't be disappointed. Let's see. Try your best and Krishna will give you all help. I understand that one young Finland boy has joined you, and similarly, many other young men will come and join you because the whole world is in need of Krishna consciousness. My Guru Maharaj used to say, there is no scarcity of anything in this world save and except Krishna consciousness. Keep your present attitude intact. Have good faith in your spiritual master and Krishna, and everything will be all right. You already have mentality, and Krishna will give you all help. you write to say, I really miss Prabhupada and my God Brothers Association so much. But I may remind you that I am always with you. Wherever I am, you and your God brothers are there. Please remember always the humble teachings that you have received from me, and that will keep you always associated with me and with your God brothers also. Now, those are instructions for all of us in Krishna consciousness, that the whole Krishna conscious process is a transcendental thing. All the relationships are transcendental. Like sometimes, and just in the material way, a husband will leave and go somewhere else to work, or go off to fight in the army somewhere, or for some reason, close friends or family members will be separated, and they have a feeling that if my wife is with me or my husband's with me, or I'm still with my friend. But after a while, it becomes a pretty nebulous thing, and the nature of the material world is that we tend to forget other relationships over the course of time. If there's a significant separation, it can definitely happen. But transcendental relationships are with the spiritual master, with God brothers, God sisters, definitely with Krishna, are all on the absolute platform, and there literally is no separation between the devotees and the spiritual master, between Krishna. I may remind you that I am always with you, wherever I am. And that includes after the definitely includes after the spiritual master leaves his present activities and goes somewhere else to preach, some other place or planet or universe or time, or goes somewhere else to preach, but or goes back to Krishna Loka. But the spirit disciples always remain with the spiritual master. It's a completely transcendental relationship. Now, I've been reading a couple articles just recently about quantum computing. They send, and I don't know hardly anything about computers, but there's a principle that I read, and it's like the computers can share with each other over a distance without any connection, so any like physical connection, like quantum computing. What? Yeah. Well, even without the cloud, yeah, yeah. This is a whole new thing where computers can just share with each other directly. What? Yeah. So, and so, anyways, if we can do, that's just still, it seems miraculous to us. It is, it is, kind of amazing. But that's very crude technology compared to the transcendental technology between, Prabhupada uses that word sometimes in spiritual communication. Like he uses words like technology, and so this is the most subtle form of transcendental technology. That Krishna is in Goloka Vrindavan, but he's also in the heart of every living entity, and the spiritual master is always with the disciples, no matter the difference in location in the heart. It's a transcendental matter. It's far more subtle than anything that we know. Prabhupada proudly held up the example of young Shivananda before his other disciples. Shivananda, after he left Germany, he was here in the Boston temple for a few years, and he would tell about his adventures. And he left Montreal alone. He had some money from his mother, and he went to Germany alone and started a little center there. And I think he was no more than 20 years old. Pretty bold and pretty daring. But he did get lonely, which is quite understandable. As soon as he was in a temple full of devotees in Montreal, and he just a young boy, and he left on his own, so he got lonely. And after a while, he got a little discouraged, but Prabhupada, because of being alone, but Prabhupada wrote him letters like this and just kept encouraging him. And he did start the Krishna consciousness movement in Europe by himself. Shivananda. Oh, no. He's still here in the United States, I think in Tennessee, Kentucky, or I think Krishna conscious. Yeah, him and his wife lived here. No, his wife's name is Madan Mohan Mohini. They're both very nice. When I moved in the temple, one of my first duties was she took me in the pujari room and showed me how to polish the deity's articles and fold the handkerchiefs and make ghee wicks and soak the ghee wicks and clean the pujari room. She was one of my first instructors in duties here. It's very nice. They were both very nice devotees. Afterwards, yeah, he got married, I think, when he came back. He wasn't married in Germany. He got married when he came back. And they lived here for a few years, 2, 3, 4 years. And he was considered, he was a grand old man in ISKCON. He was a devotee for 8 years. I was like, whoa, 8 years. And the oldest devotee was 10 years. Prabhupada proudly held up the example of young Shivananda before his other disciples. When a few devotees traveled for the first time to Vancouver, Canada, found a poor reception. It's just that's the way it was. Everybody was a young devotee, and 8 years, 5 years, 6 years, 8 years. That was an old devotee, but it just was emphasized and made very clear. Prabhupada was the only experienced devotee, and he knew everything, and he knew pure devotee of Krishna. Everyone completely depended on Prabhupada because he was it. Everything was firmly centered around Prabhupada. Everybody else was very young and very inexperienced, and everybody knew that they weren't independent, that they couldn't do anything on their own. It was very obvious and clear to everyone. Yeah. You will be pleased. This is a quote from Prabhupada. Oh, Prabhupada wrote them about Shivananda. Oh, wait a minute. When a few devotees traveled for the first time to Vancouver, Canada, and found a poor reception there, and wrote to Prabhupada that they were giving up on Vancouver, Prabhupada wrote them about Shivananda. You will be pleased that his little activities for a few days are now published in a local paper with his photo. And although he is alone, I think his journey to Europe is a successful one by this time. And similarly, wherever we go, we must not come back defeated. That is my idea. So I think Shivananda's enclosed copy of letter will encourage you. Shivananda had traveled from Amsterdam to Berlin, where he had rented a storefront. Prabhupada had followed his success with great interest. This is Prabhupada's letter. I was so glad to read as you write to say, I opened the temple on Thursday and am in the process of fixing it up. It is so much pleasing to me, and what can I give you? I can simply pray to Krishna for your long life and prosperous service to Krishna. Please do it nicely, and if you think I should go there, I am prepared. I do not mind for the severe cold there. But if you think that my service will be helpful to you, you can call me and I shall go. So I am very much anxious to know about your further progress. Upon Shivananda's arrival in Germany, he had soon been joined by a German-speaking American boy, Krishna Das, and a German devotee, Uttama Shloka, who had both been living in California. Krishna Das, only 18, had been working as a jeweler's apprentice in San Francisco and felt confident he could get similar work in Germany to support the temple there. Now they had jointly decided to close the Berlin center and move to Hamburg. But Prabhupada's growing hopes for attracting the intelligent people of Germany had been threatened in December when he had received a distressful letter from Shivananda saying he was going to leave Europe. This was 5 months after his arrival. Prabhupada had replied, I have always been glad that you were in Germany to take care of the temple, and you have written that Krishna Das is also disturbed at this sudden turn. From your letter, it is unclear as to where you are going, to Montreal, to New Vrindavan, to work for your mother. It is all unclear as to your plan. I think you must stay in our Hamburg center until you write to me why you are leaving Germany and where you are expecting to stay. It could be that you are experiencing some difficulty in Germany, in which case, please inform me of the same so that we may solve the problem. You mentioned that leaving is the best thing for your devotional service, but you should know that without the instructions of the spiritual master, there is no question of devotional service. So I think you must remain in the Hamburg Center until I advise you further. I am anxiously awaiting to hear your reply. Shivananda agreed to stay. At this time also, Prabhupada had written another young disciple, Achyutananda, who is experiencing difficulty alone in India. Prabhupada had asked him also not to abandon his position. Mostly Prabhupada's letters to his disciples were to encourage them in what they were already doing, but at times like these, he had to tell them to stick it out and not leave. To have even one man in a foreign country was very important. Even if Shivananda didn't do much active preaching, if a sincere disciple simply stayed somewhere, then things would grow. So Shivananda had stayed. And Shivananda showed us a letter from Prabhupada that he got where Prabhupada told him that. He said, even if you just stay in the apartment in Hamburg, and even if you can't do any preaching, if you just stay there, that will be a big service, and things can develop gradually, as they did in Germany and so many other places. And one thing I remember from one of Prabhupada's letters that he wrote to Shivananda was that he said, one line he wrote, it doesn't matter what service you do, the important thing is you do your service with a whole heart. That's we have that expression in the United States. Do it wholeheartedly. So that's everything in Krishna consciousness. Whatever you're doing, sweeping the floor, or managing a temple, or accepting disciples, or worshiping, whatever service you have. You do it, you just get into it, you surrender to it, and you do it wholeheartedly. And then you feel good. Krishna likes it. Spiritual master is pleased, and you feel good, no matter what the service is. This is Hamburg, August 25th, 1969. Prabhupada and Purushottama flew from Los Angeles to New York, stopped over for 24 hours, and then flew by Lufthansa Airlines nonstop to Hamburg. The stewardesses wanted to give them cooked meals and seemed personally disappointed when Prabhupada wouldn't take them. They asked if he would take fruit, and they produced a good variety. Prabhupada accepted. When Prabhupada and Purushottama arrived in Hamburg, Shivananda, Krishnadas, and two other boys were at the airport to greet them. They had a taxi waiting. The weather was gray and cold despite the season. This is August, the middle of the summer in Germany, but the weather wasn't very good, gray and cold. Let's see. As the taxi passed the streets lined with close, neat homes, Prabhupada said it reminded him of Calcutta. When the Europeans had gone to India, they had built houses similar to these. The temple was on Eppendorfer Weg in a business area next to a hair salon. The storefront with its plate glass window painted blue except for an oval in the center and Radha Krishna temple painted over the window could have been in New York or San Francisco except for the sign International Gesellschaft für Krishna Bewusstsein -V. The apartment Shivananda had rented for Prabhupada was two small rooms on the 15th floor of a modern building across the street from the storefront. Shivananda and a few others came before Prabhupada in his room, and Shivananda apologized that Krishna consciousness was so small in Hamburg. They had heard how devotees in Los Angeles were going out, sometimes 50 at a time, chanting and dancing in the streets and distributing hundreds of back to Godheads. But in Hamburg, Shivananda and another boy had gone out chanting only a few times with little success. They had no speaking engagements for Prabhupada, Shivananda said, and they weren't sure if many people would attend the temple lectures, although they had advertised around town with posters. Prabhupada smiled and sat back. That's all right. And he began talking with Uttama Shloka about his progress in translating Bhagavad Gita as it is into German. Just a couple of small things on this paragraph. They had gone out chanting a couple times without success, and probably only two or three or four of them out chanting by themselves in the middle of downtown Hamburg, and probably most people not paying any attention to them at all, or thinking they were strange, I'm sure. And so, but the success in going out on chanting or any kind of preaching, it's successful if you just go out and do it. The success, and you never know what effect. The effect is that the air, the whole atmosphere of where this Hamburg is filled with the sounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and it's purifying the atmosphere of the whole city. So it doesn't matter if people are coming up and inquiring and taking books. Of course, that's always nice, but just to get out there and do it is a big success. Any kind of preaching, just, just get out and do it. And just one quick comment about preaching, advertising with posters. Nowadays, pretty much all the advertising is online, like with everything else. But you'd be surprised how effective it can be to just go around a college campus and put up flyers on the doors of the buildings or on the telephone posts, or just put them up all around. They can be extremely effective. And that's how I went to my first program when I was 18 at UMass, University of Massachusetts. The devotees had come up a couple of days before and put up flyers, just simple, very unprofessional flyers around the campus, on the doors to the classrooms, class buildings, and everything. And I saw them in several places around the campus, and I thought, I'll go to that. So I'm just from my own experience, I'm telling how effective that kind of advertising can be. With Purushottama busy typing Prabhupada's translations and letters, Shivananda did most of the personal service for Prabhupada, cooking, accompanying Prabhupada on his morning walk, giving him his daily massage. Purushottama looked rather gloomy. He seemed unhappy to be in Hamburg, perched high in a skyscraper under a gray North German sky, with a tiny temple and almost no devotees. But Shivananda was exuberant. It seemed that Prabhupada had come to ISKCON Hamburg just to give him the mercy of his personal association. And I tell you, Shivananda is just a very simple devotee. He's not, he's friendly and social, cordial to everyone, very nicely behaved devotee, but he wasn't like ostentatious or flamboyant in any way. Not a great kirtan leader or a dynamic Bhagavatam class giver. His classes were nice, his kirtans were nice, but he's just a very simple, humble little devotee, very sincere, dedicated. In his room, Prabhupada told Shivananda he would lecture in the temple on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evenings. He would see guests in the afternoon. The two devotees ready for initiation, some regular visitors who wanted to see Prabhupada, and a young Indologist, Dr. Franz Bernhardt, who had an academic interest in seeing Prabhupada. Prabhupada then began speaking about how intelligent Germans were. He said among Europeans, German scholars were the most adept at Sanskrit. They had a lively interest in Indian philosophy. Prabhupada had a German godbrother who had come to India and been initiated by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, so he had heard something about the German culture from his godbrother. One more paragraph I'll read. As for manufactured products, he continued, if something was made in Germany, it was first class. The next best was Japanese and then American. He said the Hamburg devotees should strive to establish Sankirtan here as it was in the United States. He described how the Los Angeles temple was decorated and how hundreds of people came to the Sunday Love Feast. That was what the Sunday feast was always called from the very beginning in 26 Second Avenue, the Sunday Love Feast. They should make their temple in Germany even more important than the one in Los Angeles. And they should go out and distribute magazines and from the collections support the center. He said they should go out at least an hour a day. If the devotees really wanted to remain in Germany, they should try to learn the German language. Although German was a foreign language to some of the Hamburg devotees, Prabhupada said that somehow they had to present the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to the German people. He gave the example that if in a foreign country a man discovers fire in the building, he has to get help from the neighbors even though he doesn't know their language. He may not express himself in good language, but that's not important. Because of the urgency of the situation, he can still get his message across. Similarly, the material world is in the blazing fire of Maya, and a devotee has to inform the people, even if he has to use broken language. It's a very clear example. And you can hear one thing, Prabhupada, of course, he spoke English when he came to the United States at first, but you can hear in his early lectures, even before 26 Second Avenue, at Dr. Mishra's, how he wasn't uncomfortable speaking English, but he hadn't yet adopted or like sort of caught on to the American way of speaking English, and you can sort of hear how he was trying. I'm kind of speculating now, but I'm saying you can sort of hear how he was adapting gradually by his own understanding and intelligence how to adapt his way of speaking a little bit more to the American ear. And over the course of years, of course, he never changed the basic way in which he spoke or preached, but you hear some changes in the way he presented things in English. Anyway, especially if you don't know that he knew English, that these devotees in Germany, I think, well, there was two that young devotees that they got in Germany, and which is a testament to the sincerity of their preaching. And then when that one devotee, Krishna Das, he came from United States, but he spoke German, so that was something. But some of the devotees, they didn't speak German, so Prabhupada said you should learn German. And even if you don't speak it very well in the beginning, you can still preach and you can get your message across. Like the material world is on fire and you have to get out. You don't have to know a lot of a language to get the important points of Krishna consciousness across. And what you definitely can transmit and get across is the urgency of the message. Like if somebody's house is on fire and you go and you tell people this house is on fire, you don't just go to them and say, "Oh, did you know the house next door is on fire?" He said, you go and you bang on the door and they answer the door and say, the house is on fire next door. You can transmit the urgency without even knowing much of the language. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Oh, glory.
Just make a little to back quantum computing and our relationship with the spiritual master. Which word Prabhupada used?
Sometimes he uses a phrase like transcendental technology. And yeah, so we're very, in the world today, we're very proud of our technology, developing different kinds of internal combustion engines, different kinds of fuels, and of course, the world of computing, the amazing robotics and all the amazing advancements that are being made so quickly in the field of computer technology and medical technology and all kinds of technology. We're very proud of ourselves for that, and but that kind of technology is very, very crude uh, compared to spiritual technology. Our scientific equipment is japa beads in the bead bag, and our technology is the conch shell and the ghee lamp and the mridanga drum and the stove for cooking khichdi. That's our technology. And that technology is the most advanced technology that there can ever be. Like people in America, if they would tell them about the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, and anybody from America would say, "Oh, they're homeless people. They're bums. They live in the woods and they don't have hardly any clothes and nothing to eat. They're just homeless people." But they're the greatest. The six Goswamis of Vrindavan are the greatest civilized, scientific understanders of the most advanced spiritual technology that could ever be. It can never be. So we don't. Yeah, our technology. And actually making improve. I just read one article yesterday. They're trying to develop their one area of a kind of engine that they're developing. It runs on sound vibration, which is, of course, Prabhupada talks about that. There material in some of his purports that, if by sound vibration, even within the material understanding of it, can like the mantra, sound vibration can invoke the weapons and do all kinds of amazing things just by sound. So they're starting to even realize a little bit of that technology, but but ultimately they have to come to transcendental sound and learn how to employ transcendental sound vibration to surrender to Krishna. Okay, let's stop there. Yeah.
Regarding the Shivananda Prabhu in Germany, so he was called in his preaching, and he was sitting in Dhoti Kurta and chanting in public. Sometimes nowadays devotees think that for preach, you should be in non-devotee clothes, you should not act, and they say, they think, can you just tell the importance of being the way Prabhupada wants us?
Yeah, well, I mean, a very basic understanding. The devotees didn't start wearing dhotis and saris and shaving their heads and wearing tilak or anything it did because it was Indian nobody considered Krishna. Everybody knew that Krishna consciousness was directly from the spiritual world. Everybody accepted just as a primary article of faith that Prabhupada was everybody knew he came from India, but everybody knew that he was a transcendental being coming directly from Krishna Loka, and everybody just said, well, and Prabhupada liked it when they started wearing dhotis and saris and wearing tilak and shaving their heads, and then he encouraged it more and more, and he emphasized it more and more, and especially for preaching. One example he gave was that if you join the army, and when you put on the uniform, then you really feel like I'm in the army. I'm a soldier in the army. And he used that as an example for wearing a dhoti and tilak, wearing saris. He said, "This is our uniform," and it does make you feel like that when you dress like that, you go out, especially for preaching, and devotees used to wear it almost everywhere for early in ISKCON and for many years, not just in the first few years, but for a long time. Devotees would always wear their saris and dhotis when they went out to go to the store or go whatever, almost not all the time, but most of the time. And definitely for Harinam, Sankirtan, in the beginning for book distribution, and then gradually it shifted. They discovered they could distribute more books in the parking lots and on the streets by sort of approaching people in familiar clothing, and Prabhupada approved it for distributing books, but definitely going out, and a lot of devotees today, definitely in the United States, and I know in India, at least in Mayapur, I've seen that the devotees, they go out to distribute books in their dhotis and saris. Yeah, and a lot of the American book distributors go out, like Raghava Kripa and Manmohan Sham and Sudarshan. They go out in their dhotis and tilak to distribute books. It's becoming more of a thing now, going back to that. And but definitely for Harinam, as much as possible, wear your dhoti, wear your tilak and sari. Let them know that we know we're different. There's no doubt about it. We're different from you. And that's the whole point, is that we're not like you. We're like you. You're pure spirit soul. I'm pure spirit soul. But we're not like you. We worship Krishna. We serve. We chant Hare Krishna. We're representatives of our spiritual master, who's directly a resident of Goloka Vrindavan. It's really like to think that if you think that people don't understand so much in the beginning, but that's the point. That's like a big part of the point of preaching, is that we're different. Our whole philosophy, everything about us, is different from you, and we're trying. We make no mistake about it. We want you to be like us. We want you to dress like us. We want you to chant Hare Krishna like us. We want you to join us. We're not going to go back and join you. That's where we came from. And this is 1 billion times better for us and for you. So we want you to be like us. We're not shy about being who we are. We're not afraid to be seen as representatives of Krishna. We shouldn't be nervous about it. It's a glorious thing. Yeah, and all the devotees saw it like that in the beginning. Everybody just saw, well, this is how Prabhupada dresses, and he's from the spiritual world. So this is how we're going to dress. And the more they did it, the more Prabhupada liked it. And after just a little while, all the devotees were dressing like that. And some devotees went to their high school or their colleges dressed in their dhotis and tilak, and some devotees went to work in their, sometimes in their dhotis, or like Satsarup Maharaj, when he started the temple in Boston here, he had a job in a government office, the welfare department, and he went to work in his with his shaved head and sika and tilak. He wasn't wearing his dhoti, but he was wearing a shaved head and tilak, sika. Prabhupada called, a lot of times these days, devotees shave their heads all the way without keeping a sika. Like, what? Why don't you have a sika? The way we always heard it was that, well, I always heard it from the beginning. That's what differentiates us from the impersonalists. The impersonalists shave their heads all the way, and the devotees have a sika.
Shikha is
One story that I heard as soon as I started going to the temple, I'm not sure if it came from Prabhupada or not, but pretty much everything in those days did. Told me that Krishna, when you're leaving a body, Krishna pulls you up to the Goloka Vrindavan by your secret. I'm not sure if that came directly from Prabhupada, but when I first started going to the temple, pretty much everything the devotees said did come directly from Prabhupada. Yeah. Anyway, it's not better to go out in public in just regular outside clothes. We used to call them karmi clothes. It's better to go out and preach in most circumstances in your dhoti, in sari, tilak, shaved head, sika. It's better.
because Srila Prabhupada is shaved like saying that Prabhupada is Prabhupada.
Yeah, in the beginning, generally they didn't, but it wasn't long before they pretty much all covered their heads.
Because it's a sign of shelter to the spiritual master.
Yeah, protection, shelter. It's tradition. It's very traditional. I know. I go to India, go to Mayapur. Almost all the women there, they almost all head covered. And it used to be like that here. We had one temple.